Okay, so I wanted to just talk a little bit more about some of the features with Maya and the display here, specifically the layers, but just to reiterate some of the outliner stuff. By now, I'm sure you've gotten a bit familiar with the outliner, right? You can also, this is the outliner tab right here if you want to hide that just for more viewing space, right? But the outliner essentially shows everything that's in your scene. I know I kind of talked about parenting objects last week, but just to expand on that a little bit, I'm going to create some objects here and also just show you some other stuff you can do with the outliner. Right, so it's good for organizing your scene, right? So you see everything you create in the outliner, appears here. You can shift click and hold all these, select all these together, right? One thing you can do to help manage, and I actually don't remember if I mentioned this already, but you can group these objects together as well. Say, for example, if you have like a desk with items on it and you want to kind of lock all those things together, right? You can click all the, or shift click all these things and then Command G to group, and then you can name. I would highly suggest that you name your groups here so you know what you're dealing with here. And as we get more into Maya, right, this will get more complicated and there'll be more things that I'll go over. But essentially, when we start using shading and textures and mapping objects, right, all of that will be displayed here. But you can see that I can still select these individually. But if I select here the group, it will select all the objects together. Okay. And then if you want to move objects out of the groups, remember to move things around, you have to use the middle button, but you can pull these objects out by shift clicking, dragging out, right? And now they're independent from each other again. Okay. So as we get more into Maya, right, we'll expand on this more. But most importantly, what I wanted to talk about was layers, right? So if you had some Photoshop experience, you'll know what I mean by layers, right? You can think of, and they work very similarly in Maya, but a little bit different. Layers, if you haven't worked with them before, are basically ways to kind of organize your work into, well, layers, right? You can think of like a top-down hierarchy of microscope slides, right? Any slide that you're on, right? You can do selected things to that layer and that layer only, kind of protecting you from accidentally messing something up, or you want to make fine adjustments to something and you can't really select objects or move things around. So to create a layer, you're going to go ahead and hit this little plus icon. You'll see layer 1 come up, and let's say I want to make this sphere part of layer 1. So I'm going to click on the sphere, I'm going to right click on layer, and then add selected object. And just as you would here, right, I would strongly suggest that you name your layers so you know what you're working with, okay? And these little icons here, I can talk about these. The V is your visibility, right? Since I'm on this layer, right, I turn the V, that's gonna turn that on or off, okay? The P is something that when we get to animation, that'll be relevant because the P will make it so it's visible during playback. Right now, there's no animation to this, so this doesn't really do anything. And then this box right here, if this box is blank, that means it's just a normal layer, right? You can do stuff to it, right? It's not locked into anything. But if you select T means it's templated, right? And it means you can't do anything with it. It's just showing you like the wireframe of it. So if you want to, if you're working on something specific, but you kind of need to see through it or you need to see around it, the T will kind of lock that in as a wireframe so you can see that it's there, but you see I can't do anything with it, okay? If I click again, you're going to see an R. This means the object is reference. It's the same thing. What it does is that it's just like the templated, but instead of the wireframe, it's showing you, right? It's showing you the object as it would appear in your scene. I just can't do anything to it. So that kind of locks it out there. And then if I go back to a blank box, then it's a normal layer, and I can do things with it. So I'm going to just create another layer. And let's just say I'm going to put this box into that layer. Right click, add selected objects, and then I'm going to name this box. Okay. So this gives me a bit of control, right, on what I want to do. I can organize the space this way. Again, you don't necessarily have to use layers, but it's a good idea to keep your work organized. It gives you control, and definitely when we get to animation, it will help you see things that you want to see and hide things that you don't want to see. Okay, so layers and outliner are two ways you can kind of manage your workspace. And then I'm sure by now you've already kind of been playing around with this view cube, but I just wanted to just show a little bit more about what it can do, right? If you hover over specific parts of the view cube, it will match accordingly, right? It'll show you the view that you're clicking on, and then you can rotate as well. If you ever need to get back to your default, you can just hit this little reset button. If you want to move things around, like if you want the view cube in another place, right, you can come up to Maya preferences, and if you come to view cube here, this will, I don't know, I kind of use this, I like using it, but this will let you kind of change the orientation, the size, the opacity, just little things like that. Okay, so nothing too much in this video, just a little bit to kind of get you warmed up for the week, get you kind of understanding, a little bit how you can organize your space, and I'll do another video.